I'm here with Gordon in this amazing garage and this amazing motorcycle. This is a 1980 CB1100R Honda. Very rare motorcycle. And I'm going to hand over to Gordon to explain why this is such a unique and rare motorcycle.
Well, Anthony, back in 1980, Honda wanted to win the Castrol 6-hour race because they reckon if you race and won on Sunday, you'll sell on Monday, was their mantra. And so they set to building 100 of these quickly for the 1980 Castrol 6-hour to get them homologated. This bike, of that 100, this bike is number 27. It's all original, apart from the exhaust, which are replicas. It's original bike. And the bike, I bought it off the guy who bought it new, which is Tommy John, who is here today. And and the story has it that even the executive staff and Mr. Honda himself went downstairs and they built these after hours to get them all ready and flowed into Australia so they'd be ready for 1980 Castrol 6-hour and get them homologated. So
yeah, and that was the thing, because it was an interesting time, because these were the first sort of real specially built bikes for that, and of course, being race bikes, most of them were destroyed.
That's right. Well, a lot of people say this is probably the first registrable race bike that was made, and a lot of people say this was specifically designed to win a race, but you could get it registered to ride on the road. And yeah, you're right. They raced them in the Castrol 6-hour that year, and they end up winning it. They actually Andrew Johnson.
Yep.
And
Dennis Neal, was it?
No, Wayne Gardner won on one of these bikes, but most of them were raced and wrecked. There's only not very many of the original ones left.
And of course, anything that was a race bike, even if it wasn't wrecked, it's going to go down the road at some point. So to find something with original paint like this is incredibly rare. Let's kick it in the shirt and have a listen to what a CB1100 sounds like. So with these, what they did was they allowed a bit more ground clearance, which put them above all the other multi-cylinder bikes. That's right. And you might want to explain how that works.
Well, they raised the exhaust and they raised the foot pegs, but they also, compared to the other one, they chamfered off the side of the cases here. If you see, the case has been chamfered off to give them that extra clearance. And back in the day, Honda reckoned you could have a 50-degree clearance without hitting anything. Honda said in their advertising brief at the time.
Wow. And now they're getting down to 36 degrees, isn't it? Something crazy like that.
Crazy.
Now we've got Tommy John here, who was the original owner of the bike, and if you might wander over here, so this is a 2-owner bike, and the original owner is still connected with it. Now here he comes with his cup of coffee. Now you bought this bike in 1981. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got it and and why you got it?
I went down to Sydney to buy a Katana at the time, and I went in Action Suzuki, and this was up on a plinth in the centre of the room.
You just had to have it.
As soon as I seen it, I said, yeah.
They weren't a cheap bike either, were they?
I traded a Goldwing, which I bought from the UK, and 6,500.
Oof, that was actually a lot of money then.
81, yeah.
Well, I bought a Ducati new in 81 for 3,000. So that sort of puts it in perspective. You know, these were very expensive motorbike.
Yeah, but as a young man there, so.
Yeah. What else are you going to spend it on?
True.
and you obviously rode it for a few years and.
Yeah, non-stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been around Tasmania in it. I used it as a daily commute in a way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Now what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at a few more bikes around this amazing garage. So thanks to Gordon and Tommy John here, and we're going to check out some more bikes. Well, here we are with Graham and this lovely 750 triple Kawasaki. These bikes changed the way that we thought about motorbikes. These, they used to call them widow makers, all sorts of things. an absolute revelation in their time. I only know a little bit about them, and I'm going to hand over to Graham, whose bike it is, and who's restored this gorgeous thing. Graham has a racing history and knows everything there is about it, so please tell us what year is this one?
This is a 1973 H2A, they call this one.
And
it's the second model they made. The motor's the same as the original. They just put a chrome front mudguard and polished the back hub, and that's about the only difference, other than the paint.
And you know, of course, we were used to sort of like Norton Twins and Bonnevilles and things. What sort of horsepower did these things knock out when they came out?
Yeah, there's 74 brake horsepower and 60 foot-pound of torque. They had more torque than the Z1 Kawasaki's.
Amazing. Yeah. Now, they tell me, and you're obviously an old racer, that these things are a little bit twitchy around corners when you're powering on. Is that true, or is that a bit of a myth?
Well, to me it's a myth, but most of the people that raced them put bigger tyres on them, and they didn't have to get more ground clearance, but it made them a bit twitchy, yeah. They did twitch, but I mean, that was the era, wasn't it?
That's right, absolutely. Now, is this got the oil injection or a premix?
No, it's oil injected.
Oil injected. Now, brakes and things. You know, Japanese are a little bit notorious at this point for having fancy looking brakes that didn't work so well. How does this one go?
Not great.
I think,
it's just a single piston caliper on the front with a stainless steel disc, and especially in the wet they weren't terrific. But you just got white knuckles trying to stop at a corner if you're racing it. But you just grab it as hard as you could. You never had to worry about locking it up, put it that way.
Yeah, and it only slows you down. Now, the frightening thing about these was the fuel consumption. I believe that I've got a few friends who reckon if you rode them hard, like you were stopping every town to fill up again. Is that true?
That's very true. I used to get from Wagga to Deniliquin, I had to fuel up at Wagga, and I used to fuel up at either Lockhart.
So how far is that?
40 miles. And then I'd stop again at Drillbury, because I could almost go 60 miles.
And that was your tank almost done?
That's to do 160 miles, yeah.
Incredible.
I used to get, when I got on the open plain, it was worse than ever, about 24 mile a gallon. But the best I ever got was probably something like 48 mile a gallon.
Wow.
That's, yeah.
And when you consider, you know, we came out of the year of singles and everything, you know, the people just, I mean, they love the power, but we're horrified by the fuel consumption.
Yeah, you can't have everything, can you?
No, that's right. And of course, some of the people actually put these in different frames. There were frame makers in England making, you know, just trying to, you know, turn them into real race bikes, and they were quite successful.
Yeah, well, a lot of the motors ended up in sidecars and dune buggies and you name it. That's why they've become pretty rare. Yeah.
And of course, I suppose what happened in the evolution of these things is that the Z1s and all those sort of things, which were probably a little bit more civilised, ultimately sort of took over from the two-strokes.
Yeah, that and the California pollution rules destroyed the two-stroke. But these bikes, you can lift the clutch out at idle and it'll just pull away. You can open it up from idle and it'll just go.
So they're a nice
the first
tractable engine.
That's right. It hadn't got a power band like the 500s. They're really nasty. They got to about 5,500 revs and just wanted the wheel stand everywhere. But when they brought these out, they're a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah. Well, what we might do, let's move on from this one to the Z series Kawasaki, which is probably the next in that evolutionary chain. So thanks, Graham. Thanks for bringing this beautiful motorcycle along for us to have a look at.
Oh.
Right. Our next bike in this wonderful, wonderful garage here belongs to Ray. Now, Ray has this lovely 1972 900 Kawasaki. Now, beautiful machine, but there's a sentimental story behind this, isn't there, Ray? Tell us how and why you ended up with this bike.
Right, I'll go back to 40 years ago. I had one exactly the same when I was a young boy racing around. I had it for 10 years and sold it and moved into riding Harleys. I've been riding Harleys for 30 years now, and I've just sold my last one actually because I wasn't using it as much as I used to ride, and I thought if I ever go back to a bike, I want to get that 900 back. Well, I couldn't actually get the same one back, but I've got one that's got a bit of a history to it in the family wise, whereas I bought it off a mate's mate who my wife knew 40 years ago, and she actually was on this bike 40 years ago. So she was happy for me to buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's sort of like, it's almost like come a full circle.
That's right, yeah. And the fellow I bought it off is very happy that it's sort of still in the family.
Sure.
Like, yeah.
And what an incredible thing. 1972, double overhead cam, disc front end. It's a 4-cylinder motorbike. You know, I mean, they were still making Triumph Bonnevilles and Velocettes at this point,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, what an incredible machine to suddenly appear. And, you know, every young bloke must have been drooling over one of these in 72.
When the CB 750s came out and these sort of followed them, they were the bikes, you know.
Absolutely.
The bowl doors come up after that.
You know, and they were almost unbeatable.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
just-
So when they started racing these at Bathurst and that, I think for about 5 years it held the trophy. You couldn't.
Yep. Incredible machines. It was almost like history just sort of flipped on its head around that point, you know. And you had these, you had the Honda 4s, and the first of the V-twin Ducatis as well.
That's
you know,
right,
like there was this huge change in the way that motorcycling happened. Now you obviously just ride this on club rides, or
That's all now,
get out with the boys and have a good time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for bringing this along.
That's all right.
It's
Thank you.
lovely, and have a good look, folks. This bike is just beautiful.
Yeah, it's I try to keep it as original as possible.
Yep.
And people admire it, and I'm proud of it.
Oh yeah, and you know, and it's rideable. You push a button,
That's
away
for
you
sure.
go.
Yeah, going good.
Yeah, good stuff. Great, thanks, Ray.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, we're back here with Gordon with this 1978 CBX 6-cylinder Honda. Now, you know, we've been looking at some pretty remarkable machines today, and this one, I remember when these came out, I'm sure we all did. I mean, the 4-cylinder bikes were jaw-dropping, but then when they turned up with this 6-cylinder thing, it was like they've just gone to another level again. And of course, Kawasaki did it not that much long after. So this is, what size is this one?
They call them a CBX 1000, but actually they're 1050 cc's. 1050 cc.
And this one's obviously very original motorcycle.
Yeah, it's been restored, but it's original. It's all got original parts on it. Or any replacement part was original Honda stuff, so it's an original bike. Yep.
Yep. And you've ridden these bikes, obviously.
Yeah. This is my weakness. This bike, mainly because of the motor. They're just, even sitting still, I reckon they look so like they're going fast.
They are. They're incredible. And people, I've never ridden one. People tell me they're just so smooth.
Yeah, they're lovely. Just beautiful.
And really tractable power.
Yeah, just wander on from a while and away they go. Yeah.
Any idea what horsepower they got out of these?
These came out in 1978, 79. They had 105 horsepower.
Whoa. I mean, you know, you can see why it was called the superbike era.
Yeah,
you know, like, you know, we'd never seen anything like that before. Now, 6 carburetors?
6 carburetors, 24 valves, 6 carburetors. Yeah, everything's a multiple of 6 on it.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And any idea what these cost when they first came out? Oh, that's probably a tricky one.
Oh, I think well, they're around the $3,000 mark, weren't they?
Yeah, I think there was something like.
I can't remember because I couldn't afford one new at the time, but I bought a second-hand one in 1980. At the time, I bought a silver one back in 1980. I think I paid $2.50 for it at that time.
Yeah, right. How do you find the brakes?
Yeah, although you ride it, I'm happy with it. But yeah, they're not perfect, but they're okay.
Okay, now Mick Cole used to race one of these. I remember seeing him out Durham Park with I think he had a 6-in-1 pipe on or something. Unbelievable sound. Went past me like I was standing still. And you've met Mick, I believe.
Yeah, Mick was at our last CBX rally down in Jindabyne, of all places. Yeah, he came down. He raced these with some success, you know. And
I think the issue of racing actually was ground clearance, wasn't it?
Yeah, they still had a fair amount of ground clearance compared to other bikes, but yeah, they probably were whisker heavy in the engine department, but yeah,
But you know, just an exceptional machine, and you know, like as I said, you know, these things just took the world by storm.
Yeah, well, they've got a real cult following, and they're still really highly sought after, and yeah, a lot of people are looking to buy one of those and have it in their collection, but
Sure.
they're getting harder and harder to get, that's for sure.
Sure. Fantastic. All right, thanks, Gordon.
You're
we'll
welcome.
move on to another machine.
Okay.
Well, we're back here with Graham with this, we think 1978 TZ 350F. Now, the TZs were the mainstay of club racing, not only in Australia but internationally, and they were the sort of bike that you could actually run in Grand Prix, not just clubs. Like, you know, there were privateers that were doing very well on the international scene with these bikes. Now, I might hand over to Graham a little bit. He knows way more about this than I do. So tell us just about the engine configuration on this.
Well, it's a 350 twin. It's piston port. The red line's 10,500 revs.
Where does power come in?
Power comes in on this one probably about 7.5, 8. The earlier ones had about a 2,000 rev power band, but these ones are a little bit better.
6-speed box?
Pardon?
6-speed box?
6-speed box.
Yep.
It's got a 6-port barrel. The early ones had 4-port barrel. So the 6-port barrel improves the performance a lot. This one's been on the dyno, ran 78 brake horsepower at the back wheel. And the whole bike weighs about, it's a good question, I think they weigh about 130 kilos.
Yeah,
78 brake horsepower at the back wheel.
And just purposely built, you know, like when Kenny Roberts and all these guys, you know, they basically what the factory was producing wasn't, like for the factory teams, wasn't a whole lot different to what your privateer could buy.
No, basically the factory bikes were the next year model, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever they've raced the next year, you basically bought that same bike.
Now it's only got the single disc front end. Have you ever thought about putting a twin disc on, and is the braking adequate?
When my son bought it, he wanted twin discs, so he put twin discs on it, and it didn't really need them. And I talked him into going back to a single disc, and we saved, I think the disc was 4.5 kilo. All up, I think we saved about 6 kilos in weight, which is unsprung weight on the front suspension.
Very important.
And it improved the handling out of sight.
Now it's got a box section aluminium swing arm with a monoshock. Is that original?
This is the first model. This was the first model they made with the alloy swing arm.
Yep.
The D model before it was steel. Yeah.
And how long after this? Because I can remember, you know, racing in the early '80s, and there were TZs everywhere.
Yep.
When did they actually stop making TZs?
I think the H model. This is a F, so they made a G and an H in the 350, and I think that was the last of them.
Yep.
They actually dropped the 350 class from the World Championship.
Yeah, and which, you know, and as you know, there's no two strokes for some time, which is a bit of a shame, you know, because they're so tiny and so light and so efficient that you know, they were very, very easy machines to throw around, and a good rider could do very well on one of these.
That's right. Yeah, 4-stroke just wasn't competitive at all, no.
Yep, not when these were running. And this is still used competitively?
Yes, still used. He races at the Island Classic, International Festival Speed at Eastern Creek. It's been clocked at 232 down the straight at Phillip Island. Yeah.
Not bad for a little 350. All right, well, thanks, Graham, and thanks for bringing it along.
Thank you.
Well, we're back with Gordon in Gordon's incredible garage here, and very fortunate that he's opened up for us and he's brought all his mates around to have a look at these wonderful machines. But this is probably the machine that just changed the world. 1972, is it?
Well, they came out in '68, the original.
That's
KO.
right, yeah.
KO, yeah.
And of course, what was happening, you know, the British were sort of, you know, they brought out the triples with the BSA and the Triumph and this sort of thing, and were ramping up. But then this came out, and it just changed the world forever.
Yeah, they sold a gazillion of these. Yeah, they were just they were just so popular. You could just jump on, press the start button, and away it'd go every time. And they didn't leak oil, and they just turned the whole motorcycle industry on its head. Really,
Sure.
Changed.
And of course, this machine is the Honda CB 754.
That's right. Yeah.
And as you say, brought out in '68, single overhead cam.
You're right. Yep.
4 Macoonies.
Yep.
What, 4 or 5 speed gearbox?
5-speed gearbox.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, they were just they just were reliable, easy to ride. You know, some people had said they had questionable handling, but everything back in those days was a bit like that. But
It's all, yeah.
But it was just its biggest point was reliability. Easy to ride.
Well, it meant that all of a sudden motorcycling was open to the non-mechanics.
That's right.
Really, you know, for years to successfully ride a motorbike built prior to this, you had to know how to tinker.
That's right.
These things, you know, you adjust the chain, you know, just basic sort of maintenance, and you can ride forever.
That's right. Yeah, it's interesting that I think earlier this decade the local or all the international journalists got together and they voted a bike of the century for last century, and they voted the Honda 754 as the bike of the century because it just turned motorcycling on its head.
Well, yeah, it did. You know, like at that point, motorcycling just went off on a different tangent.
That's right.
And you know, and we forget, you know, as we're all getting older, that 68 is now 52 years ago.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, if you look at what was 52 years before that, which, here we go, was 1914 or something.
Yeah.
You know, like motorcycling had, you know, this was the moment when motorcycling just did that U-turn and just went off in a different direction.
Made it
Amazing
accessible to
machines.
everybody.
Yeah, it did. It made it accessible, reliable. And I mean, you know, you look at this bike nearly 50 years later. I know it's been, this one's been restored, but just the level of finish on these machines, you know, everything was die cast.
Right.
You know, no old sand castings anymore. Beautifully presented. You can see why they won.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Anyway, look, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we might check out another machine. Right, we've just seen the Honda 750. Let's go for a walk around Gordon's garage. This is really something. Now we've seen the Honda 6. Now this is another CB1100R.
Yeah, this is the first one you interviewed. That was the B, which was the first one, which is the Australian one. Was handmade, hand assembled the B. But the C and the D up there, they were all production bikes, but they were pretty handy race bikes as well.
So moving along, we've got the CB900F. Now this was the following on again, double overhead cam,
Yeah.
but this was the road bike.
This is the predecessor of the. They used this to make the 1100R basically. It's a similar frame, but they just gusseted it a bit. But yeah, that was a predecessor.
And of course another Honda 6 here. I mean, everyone needs a couple of them.
Yeah, well, they came out in red and silver, and I couldn't make up my mind which one I liked the most. So.
Now, moving over here, we've got a collection of dirt bikes. Now, the Japanese were so influential in dirt bikes for so many years. I think we're all brought up. I was brought up riding XR75s and all that sort of thing. Now, we've got the, this is an on-off road.
Yeah, this is a 83 model NX650. This is a really good little bike to ride. This is probably early when they started making the Venture Tours. It's a very easy bike to ride. We move on to over here. It's the XLV 750R. It's a V-twin 750 shaft drive. That's the limited edition model.
And these were made for things like Paris-Dakar and all those
Yeah,
sort
that
of
sort of
events.
thing, but they made them Venture Touring, basically. This is a predecessor of the Venture Tours.
Okay, so now the 250 Elsinore, and Elsinore was a classic of the 70s.
That's right, yeah. The two-stroke, the Honda dabbled in the two-strokes, yeah.
Yep, and of course then they made, over here we've got the dirt track, the actual motocross one. Now this is the racing brother, this is the 250.
The CR250,
The CR250 had the most vicious exhaust noise you've ever heard, but these were the mainstay of motocross, like having a motocross for many years.
These were the first really full-on production and racing dirt track bike,
We've
motocross
got,
bike.
obviously a Suzuki there. Now the next one over here is probably, that's a Honda 90, is it?
That's the Honda, yes, the little postie bike, Honda postie
bike. Now, there's been more of that engine made than any engine ever.
Well, there's gazillions of them. There's millions and millions of them being made. Yeah, they're just quite astounding how many of them made. Yeah.
And just over here, you've got more Elsinores, is it? And
this is the later model 250. They've still got the twin shock arrangement. This is a 76 model.
Yep, and we've also got the XR, which is the racing ones, and they made a series of XR bikes.
Yeah, XR, they were sort of an event. They could get them registered. They're sort of like an enduro type bike.
Yep, and of course the XL, many young blokes learned to ride on them.
That was my first road registered bike with XL 250. Yeah, that was a 1973 model. They called them the Motorsport 250.
And then right over here, we've got a full-on motocross bike, is it?
That's an 83 model CR 250. That's the first of the water-cooled ones.
You can see the suspension. Really
Yeah, they really up the ante, you know.
Now this one over here is a really significant machine, not just as a genre, but that particular bike is a very special bike.
Yeah, that's was Michael Goddard's bike. Michael went in the 1988 Win Safari. He prepared that bike all himself. They built it up and they raced it, and Michael raced that. He led from day one. He won completely outright with daylight, and that is the bike. And Michael gave that to me to put in my shed. We're close friends with the Goddards, and yeah.
Is that the same family as Peter Goddard, the road
That's
racer?
Peter's brother, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole family were very, very competent racers.
Yep. All right, well look, thank you so much, Gordon, for showing us this incredible shed, and hopefully we're going to see some of these machines at Bulli next year, and where we're going to feature Japanese bikes again. But it's so nice to see such a great bit of history about Japanese motorbikes. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah.